And so obviously after the giggling stopped, I really thought about it. Look, at the end of the day, I'm a 14-year-old boy mentally. So yeah, I giggled like a 14-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Hello, Kirby. Welcome to episode number 57 of the Promo UPFront Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Bill Petrie. With me, as always, the field general of gaming, the doctor of digital sustainability, the one and only Kirby Hasseman. Kirby, how the yellow and gray are you?
I'm doing well. No, I really enjoying this kind of crazy, busy summer. And we've talked about that. We always like it when things are rocking and rolling. A year ago, we would have longed for the discussions we are having today. So I'm doing well. How are you, bud?
Doing great. Just rocking and rolling. Things are moving forward. And it's, kind of that time, that time of year where we start kind of starting into the fall, like what you're talking about. It's not fall yet, still very hot outside. And fall makes me think of a lot of things, but one of them is being recognized in those moments that life comes down to, those moments where you're recognized. You know what I'm talking about, Kirby?
I do. Those are the things that, I think get burned into your memory because
they are,
you know what I mean? That they really make a difference.
Because every life comes down to moments, Kirby. They define who we are and the impact we have on others. And when it comes to those professional moments, we have them personally and professionally. When it comes to those professional moments, there's something truly special about the moments where our work had a positive meaning, not only on the company we work for, but the entire organization, like all the people that work there. These are the moments where people recognize when you are at your best. You drew upon your passion, your vision, your courage, your grit, your determination and resilience to accomplish something that maybe at the time seemed impossible. We've all been up against that. And these moments are why a focused employee recognition program is so critically important to a company's success. And frankly, it's just as important to find the right partner. And Kirby, I got to tell you, there is no more knowledgeable, capable, or flexible company than the good folks at J. Charles to help you navigate the oftentimes confusing world of employee recognition. Kirby, I know you've accomplished so many great things professionally. You really have. You're kind of an inspiration to me, and that's a no BS. What does it mean for you when you're recognized for elevating others?
I think that there's no greater kind of reward than, and no greater legacy you can leave to elevate your employees, elevate your team, elevate your community. And so if you can sort of memorialize that and kind of have something that kind of lets you travel back in time. Because I think both of us, we try, you try to do sort of the humble whatever, because it's awkward sometimes, but when you are sincerely appreciated, sincerely recognized, I think there's just no better feeling.
No question. When you're recognized for that moment, there really is no better feeling. And I even have some statistics about the benefits when employers are intentional architects of their employees' pride. Companies with comprehensive recognition programs have a 31% lower turnover rate. That's huge, especially right now. We've talked about the great resignation. There's a lot of companies looking for new talent because they haven't retained their current talent. So this is a great way to retain. 69% of employees would work harder if they felt their efforts were better appreciated. And a whopping 90% of employees who receive recognition from their boss have high levels of trust in both the individual and the organization they work for. So I got to tell you, as we head into fall, distributors, there's nothing hotter than the recognition arena. It's piping hot right now, and there's no better time to help your clients create moments for their employees that they serve. Your friends at J. Charles are ready, willing, and able to create an effective and meaningful recognition program to drive engagement and boost productivity. Because in the end, all we remember are those powerful moments. So head over to jcharles.com. That team over there is ready to help you and your company create those moments for their employees. You're not going to be sorry you did. Awesome. Kirby, this is the Promo UPFront Podcast, episode 57. Thank you for having the courage to podcast with me. You have the upfront section of the podcast, and I believe you're going to talk about something promo, and I am giddy like a Girl Scout on Cookie Sunday. So let's get into
it. No, and we always talk about the different topics that kind of were all over the place. And the one that popped up to me was one that I'm really excited to talk about. It's a positive thing going on in the industry, and it's from our good pals at PromoCares. Several of us have gotten boxes that have kind of been a preview for their Sleep4Good campaign. It's so if for those who don't know, I know you do, Bill, but PromoCares is a volunteer-driven industry group dedicated to social and environmental responsibility. And so one of the things they're doing is they're introducing a Sleep4Good event planned for November 8th, 2021, the day after daylight savings time, which is super well thought out. Absolutely. And it's the goal of it is to raise awareness around the stigma, not only of mental health, which we have tried to discuss on this podcast in the past, but also its connection to sleep and sleep deprivation. And I absolutely am excited about it because the people involved are just good folks. I mean, they are well thought out. They are super smart. But I also love that they are building this campaign around branded merchandise. It's like, I think sometimes in our industry, we lose sight of the fact that we have a superpower and we don't always use it. And so I think what they're doing is really, really cool. And I just wanted to give them a shout out. And I kind of wanted to give you a little forum to say,
I agree. No, I got a box too. I'm actually sporting my PromoCares embroidered patch. I just put it on my shirt. Kirby's holding up the box. I actually spoke with a couple of the board members last couple of days about this, and full disclosure, I was a founding board member of PromoCares, and so I'm still very attached to the good work that they do. And this is a really interesting thing that they're doing. You mentioned it's a tie into mental health and the importance and the correlation of getting a good night's sleep and making sure you are mentally healthy. It's a really cool cause. They're doing kind of a drip campaign with the box sent to people in the industry. And I got a little pat on the back that the Brandvocate week that we did last year was kind of an inspiration for the box of goodies and how they're going to roll it out. So that made me feel really good. And Kelsey as well, talked to her about it. It's a really cool thing that they're doing because I don't think we put enough emphasis on the importance of sleep and how it impacts moods. Now, I have teenage boys, so trust me, I know how it impacts moods big time. But I think it's a really cool thing that they're doing, and you'll see social media interaction over the next few weeks as the campaign rolls out in the manner in which they requested. And I just think it's a really cool thing. And like you said, super thoughtful that it's the day after daylight savings time where we're all kind of, even though it's fall back, it always throws my body clock off in a big bad way, whether it's spring forward or fall back. We need to have an entire podcast about the silliness of daylight savings time at some point.
100%.
The good folks in Arizona don't have to deal with it. They're smart. But I think it's a great campaign, and I love, as always, let's tie it into promo, using promo to promote something, right? We don't do that enough in our industry. And so whenever we can do that, I think it's great. So that's why I'm going to wear my PromoCares patch for the remainder of this podcast.
I love that. And just to say, I'll put it on the back of my laptop.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah. So
awesome.
I'm in as well.
Awesome.
Well, cool.
All right, Kirby. I've got a couple here. It looks like I think we're going to do a lot of quick topics today.
I love
it's kind of what
Let's
it seems like. I don't know if you saw this in the Promotional Products Professionals Facebook group page, Kirby. Always rife with interesting topics. This one is very interesting. A client was looking for, how do I put this? Let's call it an RFPD. Do you know what an RFPD is, Kirby?
I don't.
Rigid female pleasure device. That's right. They were looking for adult toys that they could put a client's logo on. Now, to be clear, Kirby, the client was or is in the adult industry, but they're not kidding. They're looking for things that might be battery operated, that might shake at different levels depending on how it's used. I thought it was interesting because it's the first time I've seen a request like that. And so obviously after the giggling stopped, I really thought about it. Look, at the end of the day, I'm a 14-year-old boy mentally. So I giggled like a 14-year-old boy.
Yeah.
But after the giggling stopped, I thought, interesting. I do think as adult entertainment has become more mainstream over the past 10, 15 years, you're going to see more and more requests like this. I'm not sure if I don't think you've had any requests for it, but how would you feel if a client approached you about some sort of adult product that you haven't had to source before? Would you be okay doing that as a distributor, or how would you approach that?
Yeah.
Besides carefully, like you're
Yeah.
approaching the conversation.
Yeah, no, I think, I have long couple things. Number one, I actually have a friend and I say a friend, I met him a couple times, lives in California. His distributorship, they sell to the adult film industry.
When we were at Halo.
Yes,
I don't know if
that's the guy.
Person you're referring to. So yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so I had a chance to kind of chat with him about what were they purchasing and wasn't trying to be, wasn't being a 14-year-old boy. I was much like, okay.
No, absolutely.
And so I had some great conversations with him about that. The idea that they would want an item like that is not surprising. I mean, there's a little bit of shock and awe, but I mean, it's consistent with their brand. And to answer your question, no, I'd have no problem with it. If I'm just being honest, I don't perceive myself as the morality police. I believe it. I'm in business to help my clients in whatever business they're in. Now, again, there are people who have sort of morality clauses within their organization. And if that's what you're about, cool. We're not. I would say I would be totally good with that. And because I remember this being a discussion 5-10 years ago. And they would be like, "Oh, would you sell an order where there was a cuss word on a t-shirt?" And my answer was, "Hell yes."
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm assuming they're not handing it out of preschool. For me, I never fancy myself the morality police. And if that makes sense for the business, that item or something like that is, I'm down.
Couldn't agree more. I'd be the same way if I were in your position. I think it's, again, it's on brand, the person we're talking to. And I've been at a trade show where it was an end user trade show where the person that Kirby and I talked about does sell almost exclusively into the adult industry on the West Coast. And it was an end user show. So the end users who were there were adult entertainers. And it was certainly fascinating, but I've had the same thoughtful conversation. Hey, it's just the industry he serves. Yeah. It's really no different than the medical profession or insurance or anything like that in terms of they buy things to promote their business. So why wouldn't you sell them something like that? Right. I think the one thing everybody should be thoughtful of, though, is to make sure it's decorated for her pleasure. So beyond that, Kirby, what's our next topic?
Yeah, you definitely don't want it to rub off. I'm going to go with, I read a study recently, and I say study, I just read an article that said the headline was Americans are very willing to take pay cuts to never have to go into the office again. Okay. Essentially, it said a new survey that said that many Americans said they'd be willing to take reduced salaries, give up days off, or put in more hours for a job that offers a fully remote option. Wow. We've had sort of an evolving conversation around this. We talked about it with Dale Denham. We talked about it, in the hiring practices, and whether we had a conversation not an hour ago with somebody said, "I love working from home." So I'm kind of curious to see what your take is. I mean, you know my take. I like having an office to go to, but I don't think I'm surprised that some workers are like, "No, I want to be home forever."
I think it comes down.
Does that surprise you? And B, do you think it's good? Sorry.
No. A, no, doesn't surprise me. And B, I think it's fine. I think the whole discussion around working from home, the more conversations I have about it, the more I'm realizing it's truly circumstantial. Yeah. It really is for 95%. Now, there is the 5% that absolutely, I have to work in an office because I just can't work at home. Yeah. And then there's also the 5% that says I have to work at home. I can't work in an office. Let's leave those folks out of it. The rest of the 95% of people, when you really distill it down, it's circumstantial. People with small kids, family members that drop by, dogs, big time living distractions at home. Right. They want to go back to the office. Right. I know I did when the pandemic first hit. My kids were at home, they're learning remotely. My wife was here working remotely. It was very difficult to get things done. It's one of the reasons summer is traditionally a challenging time for me when I'm working from home because everybody's home. Right. And it's nobody's fault. It's just proximity. And so I think it really depends on your circumstances. We're a week away from being empty nesters. So I'm great working at home right now. It's fine. It's perfect. It's fabulous. If I had small kids, no, it wouldn't be. But there's sometimes with the dog, it's difficult because she's still a big puppy that needs attention at times. So I do think it's circumstantial. I think, though, that employees are willing to take reduced benefits because they feel so strongly about working from home. I think it's great. I think the only thing I would say about it is that I think companies should absolutely embrace that, but make sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of what does productivity look like. Because one of the conversations that doesn't occur often enough with this topic is people are productive at their own rate and time. That's why 8 to 5 really just generally doesn't work, especially if you're in a creative industry. You're creative when you're creative. When you write a blog, it's very difficult, Kirby, to sit down and say, I must write blog, as opposed to, ooh, that occurred to me, I'm going to write about that.
Yeah.
It could be the same exact topic, but if you're not inspired, it's not going to happen as easily. And that inspiration may come between 8 and 5. It may also come at 11:30 at night. And so I think companies and employees need to have a discussion, an honest one, about timelines, deliverables, when they're due, and does it really matter when people work as long as the work's being done? I would say it does not.
Yeah, I think it really is. I think it's a fascinating topic. I think the other thing that you can prime yourself, right, for those things, like you kind of said, like there are times when I write and there are places where I write, and sort of psychological studies will tell you that like when you do something habitually in a place, it becomes the place that your mind will go, okay, I'm sitting down, WordPress is open, it's time for me to write this blog. And I find that I am that kind of person. Like if I start writing a blog and I'm in WordPress and I'm sitting where I sit, I'm going to work. I'll come up with it. Right. If there are a lot of people who say, well, I work best in a coffee shop. That's a hell no for me. Like that. I cannot focus in those situations. So I think that's part of it too, is understanding yourself to say your circadian rhythm, you're like my wife, people always like, I'm sort of an early bird. Amy will do more work during the day from 9 to 11:30 p.m. I'm already asleep, and but that's when she's hyper focused. And I think we need to, and that's where the remote and understanding 8 to 5 isn't always the thing. I guess
it's just having that conversation, because I do find times where, regardless of where I'm sitting, I fight with a blog. I have something that can't quite get what I say. But so I think if you have those honest conversations with your employer or employer to employee, let's focus on the work being done and not when people are working. I think it's time to get away from that. That's a totally different subject entirely, but it kind of does feed into what you're talking about.
Yeah, it does. And I think it depends on, and I guess the final thing I'd say is it depends on the kind of work, right? Because if it's a manufacturing, if it's a production piece where people need to be together, then sometimes it does matter a little bit. But I think from a sort of a white collar or whatever you want to call it kind of style of work where people are kind of working on their own. I keep saying it's the last thing, and it's not.
No, it's so good.
I still struggle. We have this conversation about mental health, and I think that for some people, there's a lot of value in coming to a place where you have a positive energy, where and again, what's that? Jim Rohn has said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I think for some people, we aren't meant to do life alone, right? And so how do you get that kind of relationship and that communication?
I agree. Those accidental collisions that happen in an office environment, we're going to have to figure out how that works for people who are 100% remote. I miss that. I still miss that. Also, I'm 51, and so I can adapt a little differently than someone who might be 25 or 26 in an office, and those accidental collisions help in the learning process. It's that osmosis that naturally happens when you have people together that is not so natural. It has to really be well thought out in a digital remote environment. It's an evolving, fascinating conversation. And it does lead into that mental health thing we talked about last week. Not that either one of us are experts in that field, but sometimes being alone does impact people negatively. So
Well, again, I think studies will tell you that did happen over the course of the past 12 to 18 months, right?
No question.
Anxiety was up and depression was up.
Suicide rates were up. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that, being completely isolated played a part in that. So again, like you said, I don't pretend to be an expert, but I in a lot of things, you just look at the math and go, I'm not sure if it's long-term, it's the best, but I know that there are organizations out there who are doing great with it. So
no question.
Yeah. So
again, just like I always say, 95% of the issues in the world come down to communication. Employers and employees communicate expectations, communicate wants and needs, and figure it out. Okay. Kirby, I know how much you love McDonald's.
I had McDonald's today.
Did you?
I did.
All
really.
Right. Then this is absolutely serendipitous.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've seen this. McDonald's Australia canceled a giveaway they were doing. You're familiar with the Sony PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
They're on their 5th iteration, the PlayStation 5. Very difficult to get still.
Okay.
But McDonald's Australia has canceled their branded PlayStation 5 controller giveaway. Now, people were super excited about this. It was red and yellow and had the McDonald's logo on it with a burger and fries. It was almost horrible in its awesomeness because it was just so colorful.
Got it.
Well, they canceled it because Sony denied the product ever existed. And I wanted to ask you about this. Yes, it wasn't. So it was basically a concept. Yes, it was basically a concept from McDonald's Australia celebrating their 50th year of being in Australia. And but it was a concept that wasn't supposed to be seen. Sony says McDonald's never even approached them with the idea. And Sony said, quote, Sony PlayStation has not authorized the use of its controller in promotional materials. Now, like I said, the design was an internal concept that never left the planning phase and was accidentally released to the media. So McDonald's Australia said the image was to provide the image was provided to the media in error, and there's no commercial relationship between McDonald's Australia and Sony PlayStation. Now, this went viral on social in Australia because people want this thing now. It's a collectible. Yeah. Is this a genius attempt by McDonald's to force a partnership because now people are demanding it?
So you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Deadpool trailer that accidentally got leaked, and then all of a sudden the movie got made. Right. Obviously, I have no idea whether or not this was a purposeful thing, but man, if it was, that's because to me, when you said Sony had no idea that they were doing this, I was like, really? They just photoshopped this? My guess is that this was fairly well down the road, that there were conceptions out there, and then Sony or McDonald's pissed one another off, and then it went away, and some executives like, screw you, buddy, we're going to put it out.
Or it's a genius move by both of them, where it's a small enough ecosystem where you could probably keep a secret, and you kind of release it accidentally and see what kind of demand there is before you really ramp up production on this. I don't know. I'm not generally a conspiracy theory guy, but this one smells like a conspiracy to me. And so McDonald's Australia, kudos to you. All right. Do we want to go another one, or are we good?
I can do one quick one.
Quick one.
This?
Quick one.
Super quick. So
quick.
This is one I've been meaning to bring up for weeks, which is why I'm saying this. So the title is Bachelor's Degree Bias Hurts Us. So it says 2/3 of Americans don't possess a college degree. That was a statistic.
2/3?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty high. So 2/3 don't possess a college degree. Yet almost 3/4 of jobs created from 2007 to 2006 require one. And so essentially they're calling it college degree discrimination, often for jobs that don't really rely on higher education. It's because essentially employers have cut and pasted job requirements and put them into the thing without being really thoughtful. And I think it's harmful, or they are positioning that it's harmful, because then people don't apply for jobs because they don't think they're qualified. And so I guess my question is to you, is this a real thing? And does it matter?
100% a real thing. 100%. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Communications. Other than yakking it up with you and knowing how to communicate with people, I use nothing I learned in college other than my interpersonal relationships of living with people and being in situations and growing up and being an adult. And I'd say most people who have their undergraduate, unless it's in a specialized area, engineering, speech pathology, pre-med, pre-law, those type of things, most of us don't really need the academic part of our college education. We need the growing up part of the college education. And so, this is a very interesting topic, considering I'm sending my kids off to college and starting in 72 hours or so as we record this. So I don't think it matters as much. I think it shows, though, you can start and finish something. And I think that's important. But I do think employers really need to think, do we need a bachelor's degree, or is it preferred? Because you change that one word and it opens you up to a lot of people who say, I didn't get my bachelor's degree, but I want a shot at that job because I know I can do it. And I think employers are missing out on talent because so I 100% think it's a thing.
So it's funny. Hearing you say that was really interesting because I was really trying to listen intently. The idea, I have long said, having a college degree says that you can put up with 4 or 5 years of bullshit and say that you get through it and you get a piece of paper, blah, blah, blah. And so I've said that as well. I think what you said makes sense to a degree, but doesn't showing up for work for 2 straight years show the same damn thing, but only much more? I think it shows more determination, because a lot of times if you're showing up for work that isn't based in a bachelor's degree, you're working hard, you're doing labor, you don't like to me, that shows that same thing. I have been able to go to work for 2 years and finish something, and I keep going. Like, if that's really what we're valuing a college degree on, we're paying a little too much for it.
I'm not going to disagree with you there, but I'm not going to wholeheartedly agree. And the reason is, I think everybody evolves. I'm 51, and I'm not the same person I was at 47 than I am at 51, that same 4-year period. I'm moderately different. I was radically different from 18 to 22, radically different in terms of my maturity, radically different in terms of understanding how the world works. So there is that aspect of it where I think there's a maturity level in a lot of jobs that they need that. A lot of jobs don't require autonomy, or I'm sorry, they do require autonomy. That if you haven't had an opportunity to live autonomously, to go to class autonomously, and make decisions, take actions and inactions that have impact on your life, I don't think you're quite ready. So I think there's a maturity and seasoning that college helps with. I don't necessarily think you need a degree, or maybe it's just living on your own. I mean, back to what I said earlier. Yeah. It's the real education in college is learning to coexist with your roommate who you may not know. Yeah. It's dealing with a very unfair professor, because you're going to have unfair bosses. And it's things like that that are far more valuable in the grand scheme of life.
Yeah. And again, knowing that you're taking your boys to school in the next 72 hours, please know I'm not trying to shit on the college experience. No. But what I would say is every single one of those can be gotten through real life. And
no question.
So like if I move at 18 to Chicago from Coshocton, and I have to find an apartment, and I have to I will be vastly different at 22 if I do that for 4 years too, from that similar thing.
No question. College is just kind of a ready-made ecosystem for that transition.
It's safer.
It's as opposed to creating it for yourself. Look, I'm a big advocate of, I think every high school student should take a gap year between high school and whatever they do after high school.
Yeah.
We tend to do things as a society because that's what's supposed to be done.
Totally.
We need to give more thought to it one way or the other. Okay, college. Speaking of college, Kirby, let's get to the party in the back section of this fabulous little podcast.
Is this seriously about college? Because that'd be fun.
It is.
That's hilarious.
So we're going to pick, this is an either or situation, kind of a rapid fire. I want you to pick the college mascot you really like better. So these are some wacky college mascots. Okay. These are actual, real, 100% American made college mascots, one or the other. Kirby, as always, absolutely there's wrong answers.
Okay.
All right. Let's start off with an easy one. Okay. Michigan Wolverines or Ohio State Buckeyes?
The Buckeyes, for sure.
Okay.
4 days.
What is a Buckeyes? A stupid, really dumb name, by the way. Really is.
Okay.
A Wolverine would eat a Buckeye any day of the week.
Well, they're poison, so it would die.
That's a good point. Texas A&M Aggies or University of Texas Longhorns?
Definitely Longhorns now.
How dare you, sir? How dare you? All right. Here are the funny ones.
Okay.
TCU Horned Frogs, which I always think that's always been a breaker name for me, or the Stanford Tree.
The Horned Frogs.
All right. the Wichita State Shockers,
Yes.
or the University of Missouri, a University of Missouri at Kansas City Kangaroos. The Shockers or the Kangaroos?
Yeah, I'm going to get away from the 14-year-old boy and go Kangaroos.
Thank you very much. The University of Idaho Vandals, or the Presbyterian College Blue Hose?
The two most honest college mascots ever, right? I'm going Blue Hose for sure.
Excellent. This is one close to you. The University of Akron Zips.
Yep, Zips.
Or the Campbell University Fighting Camels.
Just because it's close, I'll go the Zips.
All right. The Whittier College Poets, or the Stetson University Hatters?
Those are terrible. I'll go Hatters.
All right. I know you're getting hungry. It's getting close to dinner time as we record this for you, Kirby. The Delta State Fighting Okra, or the University of North Carolina School of Arts Fighting Pickles?
Okay. Fighting Pickles all day. I'm not naming anything after okra.
Okay. Hey, fried okra is good with some barbecue, sir.
All right. No for me, dog.
The University of Arkansas Monticello Bull Weevils, or the University of California at Santa Cruz Banana Slugs?
Those are both good. I'm going to go Banana Slugs.
Excellent. All right, just a couple more, Kirby. Evergreen State College Geoducks.
What the hell is a Geoduck?
Actually, I pronounce gooey ducks, but I always say geoducks. Okay, so the Evergreen State College Gooey Ducks, which is a giant clam, northwest, or Scottsdale Community College Fighting Artichokes?
Oh, I'm going Gooey Ducks. It's funny how you change the pronunciation, totally different.
Gooey duck. All right, this is a tough one. The University of California at Irvine Anteaters, their motto is "Give 'em tongue," or the South Carolina.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Aardvarks. Whatever.
Or the South Carolina Gamecocks. Go Cox. So, what do you say, Kirby? Tongue or Cox?
Oh, this has been an epic one. I'm gonna go Give 'em tongue.
All right. The most difficult one on here, the Mississippi State Bulldogs or the Alabama Crimson Tide?
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, I'm going to go Bulldogs for a mascot for sure. Yeah.
So you're hating on my son, Mitch. Wow. Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, you know what?
No, really, I don't like anybody in the SEC, so it's fine.
You know what nobody will hate though, Kirby?
What's that, Bill?
That's being recognized for those moments when they've completely not only done a great job themselves, but their efforts have uplifted an entire organization and like our good pals today. Over like us today. Our good pals at J. Charles are absolutely the most prolific, the best company in our industry to really help you navigate those sometimes odd waters of employee recognition. That's going to help you recognize those moments we look back on and we cherish. We've talked about it before, and we've talked about J. Charles. They create these beautiful, beautiful pieces of really art that are more than anything else, they're a time machine, right? They take you back to that time when you're recognized for those efforts. So you want to learn more, and why wouldn't you? You really need to, because I will tell you, there's no hotter section of the promotional products industry right now than employee recognition. We talked about employers and employees earlier in the podcast. It's piping hot. So now, Mr. and Mrs. Distributor, is the time to get with your clients and talk about employee recognition programs. Get in touch with your folks at J. Charles. Head over to jcharles.com. You're not going to be sorry you did, and they'll help you get going on that. Kirby, I want to thank you for having the courage to podcast with me today. It was an interesting one. It was a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. Always excited to give them some time.
Go Cox.